Chapter 3, Mishnah 13. The previous Mishnah taught that a person may not separate terumah from the wine in one closed container on behalf of wine in another closed container. This Mishnah discusses a case where a person has already closed his barrels of wine and now wishes to separate terumah from one barrel on behalf of the others. Beis Shammai say if someone closed his barrels of wine but now wished to separate truma from the wine in one barrel on behalf of the wine in the others, he must open all the barrels and pour the wine back into the wine press. It is not enough to merely reopen the containers. He must combine all the wine into a single vat. Only then may he separate one portion of terumah for all the wine. But Beis Hillel say he may just open the containers. He does not need to pour all the wine back into the wine press. The Mishnah returns to the laws about containers that are filled with Maaser Sheni wine. The previous Mishnah taught that if someone designated Tevel wine as Maaser Sheni after its container was closed, the container itself also becomes sanctified as Maaser Sheni. This Mishnah now limits that ruling. When were these words said? When do containers of Maaser Sheni become sanctified along with their containers, if designated as Maaser Sheni after the container is closed? In a place where it is common to sell wine in closed containers. In such a place, a container is generally included in a sale of wine, and therefore, a wine's container is considered subordinate to the wine. Because of this, the container can take on Maaser Sheni sanctity along with the wine. The Mishnah now discusses when the above rule does not apply. To do so, the Mishnah repeats a law stated in Chapter 1, Mishnah 4, with regard to a person who uses Maaser Sheni funds to buy wine in a container. The Mishnah there discusses whether the container takes on Maaser Sheni sanctity. But in a place where it is common to sell wine in open containers, that is, the wine is usually measured out and sold without a container, if a person uses Maaser Sheni funds to buy wine with its container, the container does not become chulin. That is, it takes on Maaser Sheni sanctity. Since a container is not usually included in a sale of wine, and this sale does include a jug, it is as though the jug is being purchased separately with part of the Maaser Sheni money. Since it is bought with Maaser Sheni money, it takes on Maaser Sheni sanctity. This law demonstrates that in such a place, a wine's container is not considered subordinate to the wine. Accordingly, in our case, where a person designated wine in a closed container as Maaser Sheni, the container does not take on sanctity with the wine. Having reviewed the rule that where wine is sold in open containers, the purchase of a container is viewed as its own purchase, and the container takes on Maaser Sheni sanctity, the Mishnah gives an exception to that rule. But if the seller wishes to conduct himself more precisely and sell the wine by exact measure rather than by container, the container becomes chulin, i.e., it is not sanctified as Maaser Sheni. Since the seller specifies a price for the exact measure of wine in the container, he implies that the container itself is not included in the sale. If he gives the buyer the container, it is as a free gift in addition to his purchase of wine. Since it was not bought with the Maaser Sheni money, it does not take on sanctity. The next Tana returns to the previous subject and teaches another exception to the rule stated in Mishnah 12, that the wine in a closed container is sanctified as Maaser Sheni, the container becomes sanctified as well. Rabbi Shimon says the person designated most of the wine in a closed container as Maaser Sheni, but left over some wine as chulin. Even if this person says to a friend, I am selling you this chulin wine without its container, since I need the container to hold Maaser Sheni wine that remains in it, the container becomes chulin, i.e., it is not sanctified as Maaser Sheni. Even though the seller specified that he is keeping the container for the exclusive use of the Maaser Sheni wine, the container does not become sanctified as Maaser Sheni, because when he designated the wine as Maaser Sheni, the container also had held chulin wine. Only a closed container that holds nothing but Maaser Sheni wine could take on Maaser Sheni sanctity along with its contents.